John Culberson recently went on to Laura Ingraham and talked about how he's going to cut funding to sanctuary cities to make them enforce federal law. Now, on the surface, this seems to be a reasonable thing, but it's actually not for a number of reasons. First, John Culberson and other Republicans, they claim to believe in states' rights. They claim to believe in the federal principles of the Constitution. This is not a unitary country. We don't have a unitary government. Power does not come down from the national government to the provinces. No, it flows up from the states to the federal government. That being the case, states and the local governments within them have a certain level of autonomy. And the ever-increasing level of federal intervention in state and local affairs is something that Republicans are supposed to be against. But John Culberson, in this particular issue, is not against it. He's all for it. He wants the federal government to get involved. He wants the federal government to tell local governments what they can and can't do. And he's going to use money to do that. Not through passing bills, not through doing an amendment. As he says, he's going to use his position on a committee to make sure that they don't get federal money. Now, other than the federal issue, there are other problems with this. First off, local governments, they do have some legitimate reasons for not wanting to implement or to enforce federal immigration law. First and foremost, it's a federal law. It's not very often that local authorities are expected to enforce federal laws that do not overlap on laws that local and state governments already have, such as murder. But when it comes to federal things like immigration or, for instance, tax fraud for federal taxes, that's something that the local government is not supposed to be dealing with. Now, on top of that, there's also the fact that it's just not going to do anything. It's not. The federal government was responsible for keeping illegal immigrants out of the country. They haven't done that. They haven't closed the borders. They are not deporting very many people to begin with. They're not deporting as many people as they can deport, even without the help of sanctuary cities. So why are we thinking that they're going to deport more if sanctuary cities detain these people and give them to the federal government? They're not. They're not. And even if they were, the total number of people deported would still be very, very low. No, the problem here is that the federal government has very strict immigration laws, ridiculously strict. I know, because I've had to deal with them, because my wife is not a citizen. The federal government has ridiculous immigration laws that it only enforces sometimes. And then you have people like John Culberson who come along and say, oh, localities, municipalities, they need to enforce federal law. No, they don't. The federal government needs to enforce federal law. That's what needs to happen. And the federal government can do it, and it doesn't need to force local police officers to round up illegal immigrants in order to do it. No, the way that will be done is, as I've said, and as others have said, is by going after employers of illegal immigrants, which we can do, by giving bigger benefits to people who report illegal hiring of illegal immigrants, and doing things like revamping our Social Security identification. It's a piece of cardboard. It's very easy to fake. It's very easy to assume someone else's Social Security identity. These are all things that we can do on a federal level. John Culberson and the people in Congress are not doing those things. Instead, they're talking about non-issues like sanctuary cities. Sanctuary cities would not even be an issue if the federal government would do what is already within its authority. It's just a ploy. John Culberson does not want this issue to be resolved. He wants it to continue to be a problem, and he wants it to look like he's doing something about it when he's really not.